Hello and welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon again.
Episode
5.
5 already.
So 5 of 5.
So that's 5 weeks of the new year gone.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a good one for you today, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, the plan actually was for me to put Paul through his paces before the session, before our podcast, hammer him, and then get him to sit down and start talking about fitness.
Yeah, that didn't happen, did it?
Then the other thing we were going to do was Paul sort of chickened out of that and thought, well, I'll just splash my face with water and wear some kit.
Fake.
But that's just a fake. We weren't going to fake. It's not fake news, is this?
We're not out
This
to
isn't
try
fake
and
news.
con anyone, are
This
we?
is not fake news.
No.
This is real news that we're going to talk about.
This is real sweat.
This is real sweat going down. So yeah, what we're going to talk about today, Paul?
What we're going to talk about
We've
today.
given you a clue.
Yeah,
already.
absolutely. Which comes first, mental or physical, the relationship between
Mental
the
or
two?
physical health?
Yes.
Interesting one. Do they fit together? And I think we both of us have got stories from ourselves, which really is what these podcasts are about.
Absolutely.
Is that we are bringing our stories to the table to explain why we think that it's a good idea. We've both got stories where personally I have, and I know you have, that your physical health and your mental health are very closely connected.
They are inextricably linked, to use a big word.
But
Yeah.
But what do we say? What we're looking at here, it's like the chicken and the egg.
It is chicken and egg. It's also, can you do one without the other?
Mm-hmm.
How much of one do you do? Do you do them both at once?
Yeah.
Is that a bit too much? And what do you consider as enough?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
So the main thing is out there, all of you, some will be focusing on your mental health, okay? Some will be doing a lot of physical exercise at the moment and maybe not focusing on your mental health at all, or at least you don't think you are. But I think we can sort of safely say that if somebody is training religiously 3 times a week, that they will have physical and mental health benefits from doing that because they're in some kind of habit.
Absolutely. So I guess let's set some parameters here.
Okay.
If you think about things all the time and you focus on your mental health, you could be a monk. You could literally spend 7 days a week meditating.
Yeah.
At the other extreme, you could be an athlete who trains to the absolute maximum level. Most of us are neither of those things, are we?
No, we're in the middle somewhere, and I always take examples, really, obviously, most of you will be aware, if you don't, that I've done 25 years as a personal trainer. And so one of the things that I've worked along the way is not just working on people's physical health. I believe it's very important to work on the mental health side of things, more so than anything to start with, so that they have a better mindset and a better motivation to get that training session out or to get that exercise session out.
Absolutely. So let's frame this in a coaching way. So what questions are we going to ask, John? I haven't been a coach for a long time, but I have been coached, and as we've said in this series and in our future book that's coming out soon, we've learned to coach each other in the same way we want you to coach yourselves, those who are watching or listening. So what questions should we start with?
I think the first question would be to ask yourself, are you healthy? And what does that mean to you? Okay, so in terms of you, Paul, we fortunately or unfortunately met about, was it 4 or 5 years ago now?
Yes.
It was a Facebook message.
It was through a family member. Yeah.
Who decided Paul wanted some training, exercise. He needed some help, which
which I did.
So we got together and started personal training you.
Yeah.
And so were you healthy when you started? Were you healthy? What would you class as healthy? Would you say you were healthy when we started?
Well, do you know what? It all goes back to what you just said there, John, for me. You ask yourself that question, how do I feel?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first question for me. Is health about how you feel right now? Do you think you feel okay? Are you dissatisfied with how you feel in yourself day to day? I knew that I didn't feel great mentally. I didn't feel fit. I had some challenges in life, but actually I knew that we can't blame the challenges in our life. we can only really look to ourselves to get some strength built up.
So mentally, if because I'm going to ask you some questions here, because this is Paul's story to start with, and then we'll move on to me a little bit later, because this is what we're on about.
He's going to drill me here.
Don't worry, this is what I went through when we first started. The main thing was, when we looked at those early days, we looked at your goals and we said, well, what is it that you want to achieve?
Yeah.
What made you feel that way to want to exercise? And we're not just talking about a bit of weight loss here.
No.
Okay. What was your overriding? What was the things behind the scenes that you wanted to improve via physical health?
Exactly. So by physical health, my routines were all in what we call the distractions, and that's what led to us doing the circle of distraction. They were all things that actually were taking me further away from feeling healthy. So my habits weren't what they should have been to support that, such as regular exercise of varying degrees, I'll say to those watching and listening. Regular exercise, a balanced diet, food and drink. Let's just take those two, because I mean they're two sort of core tenets.
Are you referring to alcohol?
Yeah, referring to alcohol. So, instead of now I train a few times a week, maybe I drink a few times a week.
Okay.
And I always say this isn't about abstinence, I still maintain the right to do the things that I call distractions before. But again, the balance wasn't right there. I was doing too much of one sort of thing, a little bit too much drinking, too much eating of certain foods, and there was no balance.
So did you think that doing physical exercise, because bearing in mind, I've worked in gyms and I've come across a lot of people that want to do exercise. January, New Year, we spoke about it already. But how many people go into that gym when they get asked by the instructor, what is it you want to achieve?
Yeah.
How many of those people go in there and say, well, I want to lose some weight and I want to get mentally healthy?
Exactly. And you go in there with these huge, we talk about goals, with these huge sort of ethereal things, these huge life goals. And what you don't do is say, how can I just do this? Lots of small stepping stones. So I'll give you the example there, because for me, this links into the other really important thing to answer your question, Joel, which is it's not just about getting the balance. It's not about abstinence and removing anything here. It's about balance. But secondly, for me, it was about consistency and doing, to your point, smaller, achievable, measurable things regularly. So let's give an example of that. I want to do a little bit more exercise. So I'm going to train every week. Well, how many times are you going to train? And what are you going to do? And how long are you going to train? So now we have our routine and we still train together. And we'll be doing that tomorrow. We started doing it on the drive. That's my story. And the questions that you asked, again, you're repeating today to me. But fundamentally, I started with a bit of discipline, but then it became habits, small steps to get to that big goal. Another fundamental difference, going back to your question, when I'd said I want to lose weight before, I had set a goal, so that's good. Yeah. I'd set something that's measurable, but often it would be, and I think sort of viewers and listeners will this might resonate with them. I want to go on to this stag do, say. I want to lose a bit of weight, or it's my 40th birthday. I want to lose a bit of weight for them. I'd set these short-term tactical goals. What I wouldn't do is think, well, these things are lifelong. Like I do in my business, in my professional life, it's continuous, and that was a second thing there. That continuity and an understanding of, drip, drip, drip. It's lots of small things, and it takes time. If it took me years to put on a couple of stone, it might take years to, well, maybe not years, but it might take a long time to lose it. But more than that, it's the mindset to just keep at it every week with those small incremental gains. What do you think? Anyway?
But did you? I mean, we'll go slightly off here. Go back to it. Did you, when you started training with me, think, right, I am doing this. I'm going to start training, and I know, based on where you are now compared to where you were mentally as well as physically, did you think this will really make a massive difference to my mental health, or was it purely? What was the ratio? How many people do you think, there can't be that many, that think, right, I'm doing this for my mental health? I mean, it's a bit more now, but we still have that initial goal. When you came to me, was it about your mental health or your physical health?
It starts with the physical health.
Yeah. When did you start to realise that it became more about your mental
Honestly, when we were training, because the training for me is mindset, and you've instilled the mindset. The training's the vehicle.
But also, you know, the endorphins that we pick up from
Absolutely.
the physical
exercise.
exercise.
The happy chemicals are giving you that positive alternative. You know, we know that drinking is a short-term thing. It's escapism. Exercise, it makes you feel alive.
Yeah.
You're getting happy chemicals from scrolling on, you know, never-ending Instagram. You're getting a dopamine hit. But, you know, they're generating happy chemicals, but it's what happens next. There's much more longevity and longer term positive impact of getting endorphins regularly from exercise than just getting little doses of dopamine or, you know, other alternative distractions. It's not to say that we eliminate those things. It's at that point you start to think, okay, yeah, the two things are linked. Maybe for us, and my story to your point, it was that the physical unlocks the mental.
Yeah.
I guess there are plenty of cases where the mental would unlock the physical as well, of course.
I mean, generally speaking, you know, the physical does unlock the mental with a lot of people because obviously, if you exercise, you get that immediate burst of dopamine.
Yeah.
You know, you get all the chemicals that fly in, and it's like, this is great. Some people have to understand that. And this is why they train, because they realise what they will get from it afterwards. We're all in that point. I'm the same way. It's like, you know what, I mean, we only have to look around. You can't see outside at the moment. We're up here in the mountains of Burley Wharfdale, and it's snowing. And it's like, why would I want to train? I just want to settle down and chill out.
The mountain guide has just gone past.
But then, and the yak in the but then you just think to yourself, actually, what will I gain after this? I feel brilliant. But more so than that, what else does it affect? It helps you concentrate better, sleep better. These are all things that your mental health need, okay, to be better. Without the sleep patterns, you know, if your sleep patterns are getting better because of the exercise, you will concentrate better. That will then leapfrog onto other things. You'll feel better about yourself. You'll feel better posture. You've lost that weight. You feel happier. You feel more alert. There's so many things that can help your mental health.
And you hear that term, don't you? It makes you think. You hear that term, comfort eat. I'm going to comfort eat. Yeah. What about if you comfort train? Because coming back and getting into my routine as I am this week, after a little bit of, you know, a friend's party, a little bit of party, booze up over the weekend. They don't happen too often now. But I'm taking great comfort. It's a bit like, oh, I can't wait to get back in my own bed. I've had a lovely holiday, and that's good, and I'll continue to have holidays, but I can't wait to get back in my own bed. And that is the sort of metaphor for me of the good habits here that have been fostered, and the comfort that brings you, because you know that you'll go back into a sort of framework, habit, mental and physical, that works for you and makes you feel balanced and content, and that's powerful. That's really powerful, because then you're building that sort of structure, that mindset, and you start to realise how inferior, not in moderation, but you know, if you take things too far in your life, how inferior those other crutches, the drinking, the doom scrolling are.
If we look at, for example, January's just passed, and we spoke about January.
Hallelujah.
And we spoke about, you know, those brilliant, if you out there have gone through January and you're still on your training regime. Because the problem with the training regimes is it's the mental side of things that then knock you down. Okay, so you might do fantastic in January because you've got the mindset, I must lose weight, I need to get in shape, blah, blah, it's all over the place. Then all of a sudden you get to February and your mindset is not as strong to it because it's losing novelty value, you're losing interest, you might not have lost the weight that you wanted to do, and you're not getting the gains that you think you are because you're not thinking about the mental gains that you're getting. So the wheels fall off, and that's what we spoke about. But what we want to think about is the fact that if you've got into February, if you slowly build each one up, physical health, physical health, you'll get to February and your mental health should be strong enough to think, right, I will carry on with this regime because I know that it's doing me good. And if you're into February now, there's no reason why you can't go to March and onwards from there, into that habitual the habit, the routine.
Habitual. It's continuous, and that's the thing, because it's always with jokes.
You're normalising things, aren't
Exactly,
you?
we're normalising it, and this is, I know there's been a lot of sort of some good material I've seen online about this recently, that, you know, people say, oh, it's discipline. It's not. Discipline drops down, and what was discipline becomes habit, and then you build habit as a foundation, and then your next discipline, and you're sort of building up and up and up, and you look back and you think, blimey, how did I get here? Do you know what I mean? I never thought I'd run a marathon.
So when you've been in the car and you've driven on a journey, and I spoke to this about the other day to somebody, when you've driven on a journey somewhere and you do the same journey over and over again, there'll be a time where you've actually forgotten about the journey. You've got there and you've no idea how you got there, because you go into that autopilot where things become normal. And what we have to do is when it comes to and we're going from this side, which is starting with physical, getting into the mental side, is trying to get a place where you just tend to find that you can consciously just start with say, I am going to train. 2 days later, I am going to train. 4 days later, I am going to train. Till you get to a point where you actually don't have to remind yourself to train. It just becomes subconscious.
And do you know, further than that, it actually gets, if you can't train, then it's, it flips completely for me if you can't train. But beware, and this brings us on to our next topic, what if that then flips too much on the seesaw, the balance, as we say in Reality Club?
But my biggest thing to you in terms of your mindset, we used to say to you, when you wake up in the morning, you say to yourself, not will I be able to train today?
Exactly.
You say to yourself, when can I train today? It doesn't take much to say that, but you will have more of a chance. We know everybody's busy. We have children, we have families, we have busy jobs, everything else. If you ask yourself that question in the morning, you might not be able to fit it in, but it will be in your mind to think, right, my mindset's telling me, then I'm asking myself, is there slots for me to do my physical exercising? There might be days where you think, I just can't do it, that's fine, you listen to your body. But if you've got that in your mind, eventually each day you'll probably get a little bit cross with yourself and you'll do it.
I mean, I've had conversations in the last week with people who are really driven to exercise, and they've got some really legitimate and significant reasons why it's quite difficult for them to fit exercise into their lives. But I don't want to make it sound blissfully simple. I can only speak for myself and say, you will find the time. You just will, because you'll feel compelled to, because it just makes you feel like that's your routine. Everything just feels right, and that's brilliant if you can get to that point. But at the same time, I do acknowledge that compromises must be made in life.
Of course. I'm saying, but if you have the vision and you write down on a piece of paper all the things that physical exercise can help you with, and you also write down the things that mental health, physical exercise can bring to your mental health, okay, as well as your physical health, it's huge. It's a big list, and if you can keep looking at that list and saying, wow, that's amazing what I can get from this, and it will help you in all areas of your life, because we're talking about mental health, which we're going to go on to now, which is my story, which is not a huge story. I'm not going to it's not a bedtime story or anything, but it's more to do with the fact that you've come from a physical side. I've used the fact that I've swam from a very young age and always done fitness and exercise to allow that to help me through some quite sort of hard struggles over the last 4 or 5 years, especially with my mum not being here anymore, probably one of the biggest areas. So, it's quite very comforting, as you spoke to know that I've got that in my locker, that if I'm not feeling, there's many times during that period where I would get to the night time and I would be like, God, I'm just going to have a drink. I really could just do with a drink now, but instead, no. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have a drink once I've done my exercise. And I promise you, 90% of the time, I used to go back in after exercise and think, I need a drink now. And that really helped get me through those times, and it is a really good thing to have. Even a walk, it doesn't have to be some hard hit session. It's just getting moving will help your mental health.
Absolutely. So going back to that scenario, excuse me, and I've been there where and I know a lot of other people out there have been there from talking to them, where you push yourself and you get really on it, and you just want more. Because I always say with the guys that I run with, and I'm not expert on running.
Is it addictive? Would you
well,
say it's addictive?
Well, I would say I've had to learn to know when to stop running as much as when to keep running.
Like Forrest Gump. You think you're a bit of a Forrest Gump?
Yeah, with the t-shirt with the.
Does your beard grow as you're running on?
It does, yeah.
You come back and you've got like a huge beard.
And that.
But your wife not wonder where you've been for the last 25 days?
She
Just ran.
She doesn't care.
Okay.
She's glad to see the back.
The rest. Just have a nice bit.
I mean, I'll put the violin away. But seriously, there's a point here, isn't there, about you can take everything to excess. I always say this about our sort of circle of distraction, as we call it. That actually things where, and I'll say what I usually say, you'll talk about somebody else and you say, oh, so-and-so, they work really hard, they've always work, they've done so well for themselves, oh, they're always down the gym, always going for it, isn't that brilliant how they've got, and you think, oh, no, they're probably burnt out. That's really, really bad, unbalanced kind of always work, always training, yet work and training are not seen as bad. Right. If we say, he or she's always down the pub, they're always drinking, they're always on social media 7 hours a day. Actually, you can do all those things. You can go to the pub for a drink once a week, you can sit on Facebook for a few hours a week, you can go to the gym twice a week, and you can have a sensible working day.
It's finding the balance with all of that.
Exactly. So there isn't, I don't see this, an interesting overview as well, I don't see this as good and bad. We as React Club see this more as balance.
Well, do you know what? When it comes down to it, everybody's got a different model of the world as we speak about.
Of course.
In the book, and you'll read that very soon. Okay, but
just mentioning that.
Yeah, not slipping that in at all.
Yeah.
But the model of the world that we all have is very different. Some people might sort of look at work and think, oh well, they work too hard. It's not a good, Yeah. But they might love their work, and it might be something so rewarding that it's their good thing. I'm not saying that. We're not saying
they don't call it working.
No, it's not. It could be just a hobby of theirs.
Yeah, exactly.
But what we're trying to get at here is, and we're trying to sort of lean onto the next little area that we're going to talk about, which is sometimes, I call it the zero to hero effect. And there's two ways of looking at this. We have the January people who they haven't trained and done any exercise for 6 months, and all of a sudden they're at the gym 5 times a night. Generally speaking, what can happen there is they either get injured because they're not used to it, or they lose that novelty that we spoke about. It's not the priority anymore. They don't find that it's getting them the results, and they can't sustain that in their lifestyle. But then we also have the people, which is more worrying, and I've actually done a webinar on this with the life coach directory that I'm through. I did a webinar, and we spoke with a psychologist on that about the dangers of obsessive exercise. And you've spoke about the fact that it's a comfort blanket to you. How close have you been to it becoming an obsession? Has it?
You tell.
And what can happen? What can happen if it becomes an obsession? What are the things that can happen?
I've certainly been, jokes aside.
And what we're calling an obsession?
Well, exactly. It's all relative. I think that was the tea alarm. My tea's gone cold. We can all. Some people have obsessive behaviour, and there's a reason for that, and that's a thing. And so let's just put that to one side, because that's when people are exhibiting compulsive behaviour, that's one thing. But for the average person and for myself, there have been times where I've really pushed it, and all that ended up happening is I got really fatigued, and all it did was watered down how effective, if you like, or I was really tired.
You get burnt out.
I wasn't enjoying it. You work too much, you play too much, you exercise too much, you do anything too much, you'll burn yourself out.
Injuries are very, very common with overtraining, but also as well things such as forgetting. Again, we talk about that balance between family and friends and life and everything. If you're sort of constantly at the gym, or you're training for marathons 4 hours a day, or where does your family fit into that? Are you starting to just forget about that side of things? Is it becoming an obsession? Is it impacting other people because of it?
Yeah. You should always, maybe a good way to think about it is, moderation, everything, and everything in moderation was the old saying, wasn't it? You know, from generations gone. But it's really good because you actually keep yourself a bit keen. If you do just hold back a little bit, you have that rest. You don't half find that if you're itching to get out for the next run, even if you've done quite a few kilometres in the week, it doesn't half feel better than if you went for that third or fourth run.
Well, I tend to think that we are so closely linked between our mental health and physical health. I always say that as a person, we have two people in there. We have our brain and our body, and they're constantly talking. And the thing is, if you train too hard, and you know, this is a physical, this is fact. If you overtrain and you train too hard and you don't rest your body doesn't adapt to your training. So, because recovery leads to adaptations. If you don't recover, your body will not change. Okay. So that also surely must apply to how you think about your mental health. If you've got a really seriously heavy day, a lot of noise is going on in here. Is it like check out number 3?
But we are coming live from. You can't see. There's actually Lidl behind us.
Other supermarkets.
This is just a fake.
Other supermarkets are available.
Yeah, that we're also not in.
Because I'm trying to. But what you have is, if you've done a really heavy day of work and you're stressed and your head's like blowing up, surely it's important that you have a rest day the next day from your mental burnout as well. So there has to be that sort of combination of the two.
Take some real peace, take some solace, and some reassurance from rest.
Well, we're going to talk about time and space in another episode.
We are.
So we stick to the plan today, and I think that we've sort of covered, really, the main thing is that imbalance. We're looking at balance, and we're looking at strength, healthiness, being in terms of your physical and mental health, but not obsessive.
Yeah.
Because obviously that then can lead to that imbalance again, where your physical and mental health could suffer injuries and burnout and actually more fatigue than you were before.
Absolutely, and nourish both your mind and your body. Even if sometimes it's a bit imbalanced, over time you'll get it in small steps. So, okay, well, thank you very much for joining the reality check.
So that's one of the few we're going to combine. We wanted to talk about fitness and health today as a combination, but I think it's a really, really big topic, and I'm sure there's a lot more to talk about, and there is a lot more to talk about. I'm sure there's quite a few things in the news at the moment about, shall we say, weight loss, shall we say fitness, there's lots of different topics to discuss, which does affect mental health as well. So it will be worked together.
Absolutely. So thanks again for watching Reality Check episode 5. Check out the website realityclub.co.uk. Like and subscribe. We're loving the comments, the likes, and people getting involved. Thank you so much for the feedback so far.
Get healthy. Get healthy.
And try and stay warm if you can, if you're in the UK or somewhere cold. If you're somewhere warm, then enjoy watching the next episode next week in the sun. And thanks for joining us again.